Hi, first graders. Today we're going to do our last lesson on composing shapes. Over the past couple of days, we've used triangles and rectangles and squares to make other shapes, like taking two squares and putting them together to make a rectangle, or maybe even adding another rectangle on to make a square. I hope you had fun doing that. Today we're going to be using these shapes from the sheet from yesterday, the one that you cut the rectangles, or I'm sorry, the triangles out of. And you're going to cut out the blue one, the yellow one, this green one that you then have to cut on the dotted line, and then this red one that you have to cut on the two dotted lines. So go ahead and pause the video and take care of that, and then be ready with your shapes just like mine are. All right, now that you've had an opportunity to cut those shapes out, let's take a look at what we've got. What shapes do we have here? Think about what they are. And you probably said these shapes are circles. What do you know about circles? Well, if you're like me, you know that circles are round shapes with no corners and one continuous side that goes around and around and around. And this one is also a circle. No corners, and the shape goes around and around and around. They can be different sizes, of course. So if we want to use some of these other ones to build circles today. Thinking about how we talked about halves and fourths or quarters and equal shares. So go ahead and build a whole circle using, let's start with using these green half circles first. Go ahead and build that. So if I were going to use the two green half circles and put them together, I could make a whole circle out of those two. And we would have one half on this side and one half on the other side. And if I took the yellow one and put it on top, you could see that it matches up pretty well. I can also build a circle using these red pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and slide the pieces together on their flat edges. If I do this, it doesn't really make the shape that I'm looking for. But slide those pieces together. And here we have a circle that we made out of 4 parts of a circle. And remember, we call that fourths or quarters of a circle. So we have 1/4 or 1/4, 1/4 or 1/4, 1/4 or 1/4, and 1/4 or 1/4. And if we move this yellow one right on top, it pretty much matches up to the whole circle. So 4 parts, 4 equal parts shaped like this equal one whole circle. We can also use 2 of the red ones to build a half circle. So 2/4 is the same as or equal to 1/2. And if I'm looking at my circles made out of quarters and made out of halves, and thinking about which is bigger, I know that if I only need 2 of the halves to make the circle, then I know these 2 pieces, because they're equal in size, are bigger than the 4 pieces that I would need. Sorry about that, everyone. I had to stop my dog from eating something that he shouldn't, which is a daily thing for me. So yeah, the fourths are smaller than the halves. We know that just by looking at them, but we know that it takes 4 of these to make a circle and only 2 of these to make the same size circle, so that the halves are bigger than the fourth. The last thing that I want to talk to you about was something that I thought was really interesting. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was remember back when we talked about clocks and telling time? So I made a little clock here. It's a little wonky because I drew it out. I didn't have one at home. But so let's talk about the parts of the clock. This part is called the face. And then we have the numbers 1 through 12 that each represent one of the hours of the day. And then we have the hands. We have the short hand, which is the hour hand, and we have the longer hand, which is the minute hand. But when we had talked about clocks, we had talked about how this time, the one that I'm showing right here, is 2:30 because the hour hand is between the 2 and the 3, and the minute hand is on the 6. But we also talked about how we called that half past. So we can call it 2:30. And if you look at when I take the half of a circle and cover it up, it shows half of the hour has already gone by. So that's kind of a connection between clocks and shapes, that when we talk about half past, it just means that half of the hour is gone. Sometimes we talk about quarter past the hour, like it's a 2:15. Well, look at that. Look at how that fits to a quarter past or 15 minutes past 2 o'clock. All right, well, that's all we have for today for composing shapes. I do want you to spend some time with the shapes that you've already cut out. We've got a ton of different shapes. See what kind of things you can make, whether you can compose new shapes or you can build things out of them. Maybe build some interesting people out of them. Snow people, looks sort of like with a hat. But spend some time with these shapes and see what you can make out of them. Shapes are pretty interesting that way. All right, and then also look for a worksheet to go along with this just to work on some of your skills. All right, thanks. Bye.